Welcome back to the Pro Pilot Playbook podcast, where we bring you insights into your aviation career, how to get there cheaper and faster. I'm Sean. I'm a corporate pilot. Been doing this for 25 years.
And I'm Mike Martin. I'm a corporate pilot also, and been doing it about the same time. So we come with you hopefully every week to give you valuable content to help you launch your career, because that's what we're all about here at the Pro Pilot Playbook, to let you know how to get your license and get you into the cockpit of a jet faster and cheaper.
Yes, and today's subject is, you probably clicked on it because you saw the title, and if you're in this boat, maybe we'll shed some insight on you. But the topic is, I think I may have a bad flight instructor.
So, I think a lot of our viewers have not even started the flight training portion, and that's fine. And that's what we cater towards here, is people that literally maybe not even ever been on an airplane.
Sure.
Educating them on that. But we have a vast audience, and they send in questions, and we've started to get questions how to identify if you have done your training, if we think that it's going correctly or not.
Right. And you can send us one of those questions at podcast@propilotplaybook.com,
Yep.
and we'll end up talking about it on the air just like we are right now.
Yeah. So, Sean, let's see. What would you say would be some situations where people brought up to us where you think or commonly would indicate that maybe it's time for a different instructor, do you think?
So I want to start off by saying that, just in case our viewers, some of them may not know this, becoming a flight instructor is a rung on the ladder of the career progression to become a professional pilot, like a corporate pilot or an airline pilot. So not everybody, when they're a little kid, says, I want to be a flight instructor. No, they say they want to be an airline pilot. So becoming a flight instructor is a necessary evil to, well, some people look at it that way, to become an airline pilot. He doesn't necessarily want to be a flight instructor, which involves teaching. And not all of us are geared towards teaching. I mean, that same guy wanting to be a pilot never thought about being a teacher.
Right.
And some of us are just more apt to teach well than others. There's certain things that certain humans just aren't good at.
It's like that movie Office Space. I told you I'm a people person. Yeah.
Right.
And, I wasn't, when I was coming through my training, I wasn't necessarily excited about becoming a flight instructor, but when I did it, I found out that I really enjoyed it, and I did enjoy doing it. And I know Sean did. He continued to do it later on into his career. But, you may not have that case. And here's the thing, though. Although everything that he said is true, they may not want to do it. For you as a student, your relationship and your instructor is such an important part of your training, because a bad instructor can really make the training process bad, may even cause you to want to get out of flying, where a good instructor can save you time, save you money, and really make a difference, because the techniques that you're going to learn from that person, you're going to use way, way off into your career. So hopefully we can give you some tips and stuff to identify if you do have a bad one and you may need to make a change.
Sure. So when I was working on my private pilot's license, I think I went through maybe 5 instructors, because it was at a time in the market. At that point, everybody was hiring, people were moving in and out. And, I had my first instructor for quite a while. I was doing, back then, I was on the 1 lesson per week schedule, because I didn't know what I was doing. And
Right.
If some of you listening are on that schedule, and the more you listen to us, you'll find out why that's wrong. But it was probably not until I switched to my second instructor, 4 or 5 months into this thing or something, that I realized what a bad instructor my first instructor was. I mean, I just didn't know.
So what was he doing?
I didn't know any better. Looking back on it now, there's a few key critical things he wasn't doing. But at the time, when I got the new instructor, when I switched out, it was just like night and day. Driving home from the airport, holy moly, I just learned way more in that 1 hour lesson than I ever did with How is this possible?
He had nothing to compare it to.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because the other guy was there to build time. Plus, he was short. You know, he knew he was going to be leaving for the airlines there soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was phoning it in, you know, as they say. And you know, he may not have been a good instructor to begin with, because everybody has to do this to build time. But I would say one of the biggest things your novice instructor would leave out is having a good plan, having an actual lesson plan
Absolutely.
they work from, having the experience to know at 4 or 5 hours in whether you're where you should be or whether you missed something and how to go back and correct that. And that's something that comes with experience and with an instructor who actually cares about his students. Another big one is pre and post flight briefings.
Big one.
This is something that I really harp on. You see, your flight lesson is charged by, one of the ways it's charged is by a little meter in the airplane that runs. It's an hour meter called a Hobbs meter. And every 6 minutes, that little tenth of an hour clicks off and you're charged. And I've seen over and over again instructors, you know, their student shows up at the airport and they grab their headset and they walk directly out to the airplane. Or they have the student go out in pre-flight and then they walk out and they jump right in the airplane and start it up. And then they'll talk about what they're going to do on that lesson while they're taxiing out to the runway.
Yes.
And the student has no clue. And then it's a complete learning experience while that engine's running in the airplane.
Yeah, and the cockpit is a terrible, terrible environment to learn in.
Yeah,
because,
horrible classroom.
Yeah, it's because you got noise, you got all this stuff that you're consuming in front of you, you know, all these things going on to distract you, and then you got this guy in your ear telling you what to do. And, you know, for you to digest the information, I couldn't agree more, Sean. You've got to have a purpose before you head out there. You need to have a clear plan of action of what you're going to do. And then when you get back, not necessarily criticism, but you do need a critique on what happened and how you can do better.
Right. Yeah. So that's the post-flight briefing. The post-flight briefing is just as important. So you want to make sure you ask him, and you know, again, back to the whole being human thing and maybe not being a good teacher or people person, you know, flat out tell him, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm going to be a professional pilot, just like you. I want the clear, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I want clear criticism. What am I doing well? What do I need work on? How am I comparing to your other students?
Yeah.
You know, go ahead and ask him those questions. Ask him what you're going to do on your next flight. What is the game plan for my next lesson? And the more you do stuff like that, the more he's going to expect it and be prepared for this. And the most important question you can ask is what we're going to do on that next lesson before you walk away. Because what you'll do with that information is go, let's say he says, well, we'll be working on steep turns next lesson. Well, then you go home and you pull up YouTube, and there's a plethora of aviation videos out there with people putting GoPros in the cockpit, filming, doing steep turns. And you can even look up your aircraft model of a Cessna 172 and watch somebody learn steep turns from their instructor before you show up at your lesson, for your next flight lesson, and you will be amazed how smoothly that lesson will go.
Absolutely. It's the old adage, proper preparation prevents poor performance. You can add even more piece to that if you want. But yeah, that's the key. If you know what to expect, if any of you have ever had the absolute embarrassing task of playing a video game with a child and they beat you really quickly.
Right.
It's not because they're way smarter than you. It's because they've played it so many times.
Right.
And they know what's going to happen. If you know what's going to happen at that lesson with a proper pre-briefing from your instructor and then proper studying prior to that because you knew what was coming from the day before, you will get in there and just knock it out of the park. You know?
Absolutely. Another classic bad instructor move is the schedule mess-up. The schedules just don't work because he had another student that took longer and whatever. This is a common problem with flight instructors. If you got the notorious guy who's every time you fly not available or still in the air or something, that's another red.
Yep, doesn't work weekends,
Right.
that kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah, so you can always, nothing says you can't change your flight instructor. You know, it could be beneficial.
Yeah, it could save you lots of time and lots of money. But I got a great flight instructor story for you that I'll share with you guys. It's kind of funny. I had an instructor when I was doing my instrument training. This is 20 years ago. And he is an outstanding guy if he's watching, and he was very successful in his career. But a couple times he'd be, we're all in our 20s, man. And, maybe he didn't want to be there, right?
Sure.
And I'm training in the Midwest in the winter, okay, like now, and it's very cold. And how these heaters work in these planes, they're very drafty. It's a drafty environment. And we're working on instrument training where you wear a device that limits your view. They call it a hood or foggles, but in this case you have a hood, which allows you to not see out the windows, but only see the instruments, and you're practicing
it's like
holding
horse
low.
blinders for the top.
Right. And a common problem when you're training in cold climates is it's like when you're riding in the car with your wife or girlfriend or significant other, and she likes it at one temperature and you like it another temperature.
Sure.
And what's most common is the student has what they call the student sweats, which you're all geared up like, gonna go flying. This is great, and your adrenaline's pumped. Well, the instructor, he's been doing this, 8 hours this day, and he's completely relaxed. So he's freezing over here, and you're like, could you turn that heat down? So I'm arguing with the instructor about the temperature, right? Yeah. So instead of talking, he used a little negative reinforcement. So basically, I keep telling him it's hot. So he's not talking and he's watching me. And every time I got a little off my interview or whatever, because the controls are on his side, if I got off my altitude or something a little bit, he'd start cranking the heat and I start sweating. And then when I got everything right on track, he would cool it down in there. It'd be nice. So I don't believe that's really proper technique. And if your instructor's doing that, he probably shouldn't be. But it's a funny story.
That is a funny story. Yeah, messing with the environmentals to keep you on track. I never thought about that.
Right. But hey, we hope that you enjoy this content and you have a good time, because that's what this job and career path is all about, an enjoyable way to make a lucrative living. Yep. And we like to spread the word. So if you find this information entertaining and you know somebody else that might want to be a pilot, please pass it along.
Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.